Hello. Today's stories come from r/MaliciousCompliance. We have 4 stories today, but our first may well have come from Neighbors from Hell because it sounds like an HOA nightmare. It is titled, They Must Be My Leaves on My Curb? As you wish. The leaf collection company for my neighborhood has absurdly strict rules about where leaves must be for pickup. I live at the end of a cul-de-sac, so my curb is curved and pretty short, about 30 feet or 9 meters long. My property is wedge-shaped, so my backyard is quite long, 200 feet or 60 meters, and has 40 to 50 oak trees. I also have 2 sugar maples in my front yard, so leaves, lots of leaves. Pickup rules state leaves must be within 5 feet of the curb, but on the road. They must also be at least 15 feet from a mailbox. Because subscriptions for leaf pickup are by individual homeowner, neighbors are not allowed to combine leaves and cannot buy a group subscription. Subscribers must only put their leaves from the current year out for pickup. Pickup trucks use GPS to identify homes who have signed up and ignore leaves in front of homes that did not sign up. Because I have so many leaves and so little curb, only 15 feet of available curb due to the required distance from a mailbox, I called the leaf collection company and asked to put the leaves along a longer curb I share with my neighbor. No problem, they said. Great. The truck came through and picked up a fraction of the pile and left the rest of the pile the driver decided was in front of my neighbor's property. I called the company back and a different person said, "Those are the rules. I'll just have to figure it out." Fine. Now it's on. I have 15 feet of width and 5 feet of depth. There is, however, no limit on height. I moved the remaining leaves to my available curb space. I collected the rest of my leaves and added them to the pile. I spoke with my neighbors and acquired the rights to their leaves by paying them $1 each. Now they are all my leaves. I shoveled and swept the leaves off the streets. They went on the pile. I collected the purchased leaves from the neighbors. They went on the pile. Leaves continued to fall, so I kept adding them. It was a lot of work, but the pile was over 12 feet tall. I spent a ton of time using a snow shovel to fling the leaves to the top of the pile that was more than 5 feet above my head. Neighborhood residents stopped to gape at the epic leaf mound. I am happy to battle willful ignorance with malicious compliance. I reminded myself of this every time I spent another hour tending to the obscenity on my curb. The truck came today. The pile dwarfed the truck. They had to drive away and dump leaves, then come back and reload. Twice. Edit. Not surprisingly, many want to see the pile. Since I did this alone, I didn't have a way to take a picture of myself in front of the pile. Attempts failed. I also don't want to show too much house for fear the company could single me out for denial of future services. However, my son took a picture when he got off the bus on the first day when the pile was about 10 feet. He's 6 foot 1 inch. Not really the proof that satisfies, but it's all I have. All right, let's start by taking a look at this photo at the end. Holy smokes! You can see a little itty-bitty part of the house in the back there, but that's a pretty massive pile. Hopefully, the leaf pickup company learned their lesson. Otherwise, who knows how far OP will take this? That little hill, it's going to turn into a mountain, perhaps even engulf the entire neighborhood next year. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Let's jump to the top-rated comments. I have to say, the first of which is exactly what I had on my mind. Lyle Racher said, "The child in me just wanted to jump into your pile of leaves." OP replied, "It's normally quite the temptation, but 1. There is an unknown quantity of dog poop mixed in with the leaves since it's virtually impossible to find the poop among the leaves before collecting them. And 2. Even my 15-year-old son admitted that he wasn't sure he could get out of that pile if he jumped into it, and said leaf suffocation sounded like a terrible way to die." OK Investigator said, "Thank you for all your hard work to produce this epic malicious compliance story. Extra points for going the legal mile to make the neighbors' leaves your leaves. 5 stars. Esoteric Ocelot said, "Paying them all $1 to acquire the rights to their leaves was my favorite part." Ozuzoku Love said, "Leaf subscription? GPS tracking for picking up leaves from houses? What the F kind of HOA dystopia do you effing live in?" Terrain Flight added, "Right? I can put literally anything on the curb and the city will pick it up on trash day." Our second story is a great example of when following the rules too closely can bite you in the behind. It is titled, Apartment Manager Doesn't Take Cash for 2-Cent Bill. Malicious Compliance Ensues. In 2019, I moved from an apartment complex in Celebration, Florida, to a condo. As usual, when you move out of an apartment, you get a final bill, which includes your last month's prorated rent, deductions for damages, security deposit refunds, and the like. We paid it. The next month, I get a call from my wife who says we've got a follow-up bill in the mail from the apartment management company for 2 cents. We're both in the tech field, so we laughed that this company's IT department didn't catch the edge case of spending 50 cents in postage to collect 2 cents in revenue. But it happens. My wife prints out a copy of the bill. I grab 2 cents from the change jar. The apartment complex is on my daily drive, so I swing by the office. I walk in and tell the manager that I want to pay my last bill. I say, it's 2 cents. Here's the bill, and I have the 2 cents if you want it. The manager says, we don't take cash. Nothing else. There was an awkward pause. I say, I don't expect you to take cash. I expect us both to have a laugh about how silly computer systems are, and for you to write off the 2 cents because it'd cost you more to process the payment. She says, I'm not going to do that. Again, awkward pause. I say, so you want me to write you a check for 2 cents and mail it? And you're going to process that check. The manager says, yes, send us a check and we'll process it. And then walks back into her office to end the conversation. So I go home and set up an automatic monthly bank payment to my apartment complex for 3 cents. And then, because I'm a programmer, I write some code to send a letter once per month saying, I'm so sorry, I've overpaid my bill. Please send me a check for the overpayment. And I use an online service that sends postcards in ridiculous sizes up to around 18 inches by 24 inches, figuring that'll be my escalation strategy. The first of the next month, I get a call from the apartment company's regional manager. After introducing myself, the next 2 minutes were the most sincere. Oh God, we made a mistake. Please don't do this. We'll never contact you again. Apology anyone could have hoped for. I stopped the mail and never heard from them again. Did I spend several hours on malicious compliance for 2 cents? Yes. Was it worth it? Absolutely. You know, it's stories like these that make me wonder how some of these managers got their role in the first place. OP's approach here is amazing. Too bad it didn't escalate to the clown-size envelope. I'm sure that would have resulted in a priceless response. On to the comments where we have 2 really funny anecdotes covering similar situations. Egbraceus said, AT&T sent me a 3-cent bill. I sent them a check for 7 cents and began hounding them for my refund. OP replied, if I didn't already have a twin, I'd bet we were separated at birth. The Naughty Dog shared, a long time ago, I bought something at Sears using my Discover card, which Sears owned at the time. I wasn't happy with my purchase and returned it the next day, but my bill had cycled with a $0 balance. So of course, I ignored it. The next month, I got another bill for $0 and had a nasty note about being late and paying right away. I assumed that there was some sort of rounding error, i.e., the interest was less than 1 cent. So the bill rounded down to 0 but was non-zero internally, causing the nasty language. I called them and they said there was nothing they could do because the bill was 0. Next month, I get another bill for $0 and it had some threat about my account going into default and maybe closing the card unless I paid $0 immediately. So I wrote out a check for $0 and mailed it in with the stub. Maybe 10 days later, I got an apology note and they returned my $0 check. Chocolate Banana Cat said, my sister and brother-in-law moved to another state. For 5 years, my brother-in-law got a monthly bill from the tollway here for 5 cents. Once, when we were visiting them in their new state, my brother-in-law gave me his latest bill and asked me to go by their office when I got home and pay it in person. When I went to pay, all I had was a dime, and they couldn't give me change. After that, my brother-in-law got a monthly statement with a 5-cent credit. After a year of that, they sent him a check for 5 cents. Our third story shifts us back to the workplace where malicious compliance tends to live. It starts with, HQ Hotshot demands people work on the clock. And they do. Our working time in the company ends at 4 p.m. I work here for 4th year, and since my first day, it was normal that people clock out at 4. Guys on the production floor usually shut down their machines around 3:30, clean the station, and go to shower and change into normal clothes to be ready to clock out at 4. Recently, we got a new factory manager from an HQ. Doodle, how he flipped when he found out people stopped working 30 minutes early to clean their stations and change clothes. He called a big meeting and told us, middle guys, to tell people that 4 p.m. time is not the time to leave, but to stop working. Thinking he was being smart, he overlooked the rule that employees clock out only when leaving the building, company rule for safety reasons. Basically, it means that the only unpaid thing in our work is smoking, because smoking is allowed only outside of the compound. Past 3 weeks, people were turning off machines at 4 p.m. and taking their sweet time to clean the workplace and hit showers, usually making 40 to 60 minutes of overtime per day. Today, the new manager finds out that over 100 people will have 20 hours of overtime, and he's got to dish out nearly 40,000 extra on salaries. There is also not enough production work to cover it because all the machine cleaning and showering was done past regular clocks and cannot be counted towards production, but as utility hours, which employees were generous enough before to fit them into regular hours thanks to filling daily goals a bit early. The new headquarter hotshot now running around the compound trying to find how to justify why suddenly under his command the company needs an extra 2,000 man-hours when for over 10 years it never did. Edit. The compound I work at does not technically generate any money. Our sole purpose is to create precision machine parts for the company portfolio. We do not take any external orders. All we do is supply our headquarters with parts or spare parts to produce final products and, of course, sell them. This means that we do not report to HQ profits, but only operational costs. If our operational cost starts to be higher than ordering these parts from third party, then we are effed. Edit 2. We are unionized with nearly 70% of employees being members. Yes, floor guys get to shower at work if they want. Yes, they get work clothes laundry done over the weekend. Yes, workers get €38 food stamps per month. Yes, cafeteria is subsidized and meals cost €2. Get into union and make your masters sit down face to face. You are human beings. Time to be treated as such. Sounds to me like this hotshot tried to fix something that wasn't broken and did a ton of damage. Hilarious that it made him look so horrible. He must have been panicking. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense to gain an understanding of the work and the employees before making changes. That'd be silly. Let's head to the comments where 2 other Redditors have some great short stories of similar and funny situations. Palpitation OK shared, I love a manager that walks in arrogantly and walks out fired. OP replied, I think he lost the spring in his step and I do not think he will get fired, but I doubt he will stay here for December. WestYX said, hopefully he'll learn and become a better manager. Either way, a lot of people got a lot of overtime out of it. Expat Wharfrat said, had one of these managers once. First time in a leadership role, so she decided to track every minute of every day for the entire team by sending us an Excel spreadsheet to fill out with literally everything we did, all day, every day, which had to be returned before we left each day. It was awful. What she didn't know was that I had basically automated my entire job with scripts to seek out all the brain-dead work that required no real thought, so I could focus my energy on the tougher tasks I had to handle. This turned me into the top performer in my department. Her spreadsheet effectively ruined that. So I had to take each and every file one by one and run through the things that I had previously automated. After about a month, the department head stopped by to gently ask what the F was going on. So I showed her how much time the new spreadsheet was costing me. By noon the next day, the spreadsheet got canned. Went back to scripting my work and production took off like a rocket again. Tarnished 713 added, my last job tried that too. We had a spreadsheet we had to fill out with everything we did each day. If that meant I answered the phone for 5 minutes, it went on the report. If I went to the restroom, yep, on the report. It got to the point where more of my day was spent working on that spreadsheet than anything else. Expat Wharfrat replied, exactly, I actually added a field called Activity Report. Manager didn't think that was as funny as I did. Betrayer Mordred added, as someone who actually enjoys looking into efficiency, I get a laugh out of it. I have that laugh scheduled for next week. Our last story will leave us off with that wholesome warmth because after a lot of questions in the comments, OP takes the time to help others. Our story is titled, Boss Says I Should Quit Because I Like Spending Time on Hobbies. So I did. I was working for a startup engineering firm working as a piping design engineer. But since it was a startup firm, we didn't have a lot of manpower, and the ones we had weren't as qualified either. I was one of the very few qualified enough to handle a team of my own. The boss trusted me with almost everything. I was like the second in command after the boss only because I was managing a lot of things on the side on a voluntary basis. Things like paycheck balancing, client meetings, quality assurance, documentation, and other stuff which he should have hired someone else to do. I was good at it, and he took full advantage of it by giving me things to do that were never under my job description. One day, he had this bright idea that we should revamp our website to attract more clients. And he gave this project to his nephew, who just graduated from college as a developer of sorts. After a week or so, the nephew came up with the first draft of the website, and the boss was fairly disappointed, as it didn't look anywhere near to what he expected. He then called me in and asked me if I knew anything about website design. At that time, I was very much interested on user interface and user experience and was doing an online course to learn about it more. So I told him that I'll see what I can do. I spent the next full week making a proper information architecture, wireframes, and color guidelines that the nephew could pick up and build the website from scratch. In the end, the website looked futuristic, and the boss was pretty happy. But during the week, my other responsibilities were put in a backlog, and it just kept piling on. I knew I would be able to explain it once I was done with the website and didn't pay too much attention to it. The next week, my boss caught up with backlog and called me into his cabin. He started yelling at me for all the responsibilities that I didn't attend to. I calmly told him that I was working on the website, and it's not a big deal. I told him that I would clear it out as soon as possible. But he wasn't happy. He asked me why I spent so much time doing something that isn't even my responsibility. I told him that I was learning about user interface and user experience and was pretty much interested to learn more. I obviously never thought about pursuing it as a career, since frankly, I was a mechanical engineer and didn't think jumping to IT would be easy. The boss snapped and told me that I should quit and pursue my hobby as a living. He said that only then I will understand how lucky I am to have a job that pays. I kind of got offended because 1, he doesn't even pay me the value of things I do for the company, and 2, he knew I could handle it and yet took this as an opportunity to discipline me. I stepped out of this cabin, went to my desk, and put in my resignation and went home. He called me a couple of times, asked me to rescind my resignation, and then made other people from the organization call me to convince me to come back. I wasn't having it at all. It's been 2 years now. I decided to pursue user interface and user experience as a career now, and I'm working as a product designer in one of the biggest organizations in the country, with a pay that's almost 300% more than what I was getting as a mechanical engineer. Update 1. To all the people who wanted to know the company status today, the company was shut down because they had to pay a huge penalty for not being able to deliver the last project I was handling. Then Vid hit, and they had to reduce pay for all the other staff, which led to people leaving. Eventually, the company went bankrupt for not being able to keep up financially after the pandemic slowdown. Update 2. For all the people who want to know the steps I pursued to have a career in user interface and user experience, I did the online certification course from Google and spent a lot of time solving whiteboard challenges, preparing myself to be a problem solver. Then I got the opportunity to intern for a service-based agency for a few months, where I dedicated my time to learn as much as possible. And then, when I thought I was ready, I applied to all the openings I found on LinkedIn and other job portals until I finally landed a job with this tech unicorn startup. While I was working as an intern, I also invested in a bootcamp certificate course from an organization called Design Boat in India, and also some certificate course from Interaction Design Foundation. Wow, Hope really came out ahead in this story. So delightful. He was totally being taken advantage of. You'd think that his boss would have recognized what an asset he had, but unfortunately, it's not surprising that he didn't. Let's check out the comments for some funny before a great anecdote from another user. Mountain Turnover said, I see no logic in the boss thinking process and action. Ilishka93 said, honestly, pure speculation on my part, but I think a lot of bosses have inferiority complexes towards their most capable workers and think they have to put them down from time to time so they don't realize their worth. Lord Axelon said, beatings will continue until staff morale improves. Durgadas added, you weren't supposed to react that way to abuse. Get back here and take more. Far too many bosses. Luck Administrative shared, very nice. I also recently took my manager's advice. She had called us, a group of technical writers, back to the office recently. We ran all sorts of stats that showed we had been more efficient at home and presented them to our supervisor. Our supervisor had us present the info to our manager during a meeting. Our manager said if we didn't like it, we should find a position that better suits our life. I applied for another job during the meeting, interviewed, and got an offer. I was the second most senior writer on the team. We had a team meeting yesterday and I announced I was leaving. My supervisor asked why, and I said, our manager was very clear about our options. So I took her advice. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.